Best of Enemies is a new drama biopic movie that is directed by Robin Bissell. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. I apologize if I got it wrong. This film stars a number of people that I'm a big fan of, namely Taraji P Henson, Sam Rockwell. It also stars Babu Cisse. You guys gotta give me some credit for that one. I've had to look that shit up 10 times before this review started. I had to recite it for like 5 minutes until I got his name right. And I wanted to get his name right because when he popped up in this movie, my first thought was, holy shit, is that Pilgrim from Into the Badlands? Sure enough, I looked it up going into this review and I was like, holy shit, yeah, that is Pilgrim from Into the Badlands. I'm not used to seeing him in a movie where he's not, killing things with his bare hands. So it's a pretty awesome thing to see, and I do want to spoil that for you guys right now. He does not kill anybody with his bare hands in this movie because that would be weird and slightly awesome. Best of Enemies is based on a true story, and it takes place in the early 1970s. Taraji P Henson plays Ann Atwater, a civil rights activist who is trying to evoke change in the town of Durham, North Carolina. Sam Rockwell stars as the owner of a garage who also is the president of the KKK at the time. After a problem arises in one of the schools for black children, Taraji and Sam Rockwell's character are forced to work together. They're put on some kind of committee where they have to do some kind of charrette or something. In the movie, a charrette is basically where there's a whole bunch of different parties that are brought together and there's a big negotiation, and at the end of it there's supposed to be some kind of resolution. To fix the problem with the black kids' schools, they're brought together and they're forced to work together to try to find a resolution to the schools, and basically this leads to the desegregation of schools in North Carolina. I knew really nothing about this movie other than the trailer. I didn't really know anything about the story. It's an interesting story once I actually looked it up. All I saw was the trailer. I saw Taraji doing her no-nonsense angry black woman thing and I was kind of like, yep, that looks entertaining. I'm gonna check that out. Right off the bat, I will say that it was kind of weird looking at Taraji in this movie because Taraji, they had to accentuate her features, try to make it more accurate to the real life Ann Atwater. They tried to make her bigger, so they gave her like a big fat bodysuit or something like that. Tried to make her look a little bit older too, and I will not lie, that took some getting used to. It was kind of weird because Taraji was walking different. Of course, me, who's used to looking at Taraji with such thirst, she's like the living, breathing example of black don't crack. You guys should know me by now. I'm usually a prisoner to my moments of thirst. It makes me say things that I don't really think about until they're out of my mouth. I have to focus on the performance of Taraji because number one, she's a really great actress, and number two, if I actually allowed the thirst to overcome me for Taraji in this video, then the rest of the video might look like this. Yeah, I already wasted one video this month on the April Fool's thing. I'm not going to do that to you guys again, so we're going to avoid that. Taraji always brings a lot of passion, a lot of intensity, a lot of emotion to the rest of her performances, so it's really not a surprise that she was made to play a woman like Ann Atwater. She is absolutely no nonsense, and she definitely is one of the most watchable things in this movie. Likewise, Sam Rockwell is usually a beast in whatever movie that he's in, and he was really great in this movie. It's not easy for me to say, because for most of this movie, he is a racist piece of shit, so it makes it hard to watch him sometimes. Rockwell does enough of a good job with his performance to sell you, number one, that he's a racist piece of shit, and number two, to sell you that he could change. That's what this movie's about. It's all about communication, it's all about growth, it's all about evolution, it's all about seeing things from different perspectives. I know some people get tired of being beaten over the head with the same old, yeah, racism was bad, and it's an old story that takes place back in the day that once again focuses on racism. Yeah, I get that. But if there is a message that people could take from this movie that does apply to the modern day, it's that sometimes we're better off working through our issues together than we are just staying apart and hating each other. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree with the other person, nor does it mean you should. Either way, I kind of like the underlying message and theme of this movie of working together, understanding the other side so that we can all be better as people for it. Obviously, since it takes place in the 1970s, it's going to have a killer 1970s soundtrack. Shout out to Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye, you can't go wrong with any kind of Marvin Gaye, like, ever. Also, Babu Cisse, okay, I'm not going to call him that. I'm just going to call him Pilgrim because I only know him as Pilgrim. Really great in this movie, too. He gave one of the best performances. He's trying to be like a mediator between the two sides in this movie. Definitely wanted to show him some love for that. So kudos to Pilgrim. Unfortunately, when I watched this movie, I got really frustrated. And I got frustrated for good and bad reasons. Frustrated for good reasons because I looked at this movie and I said, man, I can see the potential here. I could see this being elevated beyond your whole run-of-the-mill old story back in the day based on racism that sends a good message movie. I could see this movie being great. That's where the bad part of my frustration comes in. It's all about the way they decided to tell the story. It's all about the execution and the way they balance their storytelling. And in my opinion, they didn't balance it enough. This movie sets itself up on the premise of two sides who hate each other, who are forced to come together and find some semblance of unity or understanding so that there can be a solution to their problems. But from a storytelling standpoint, the movie really presents itself as speaking from the racist point of view. I'm not begrudging Sam Rockwell and his arc arc in this movie, and I'm not saying that we didn't need to see the other side and see where they came from and stuff like that, because it's all about changing that mindset, right? But in this movie, as far as Taraji P Henson, as far as some of the people on her side, we don't really get any kind of character with them. A lot of the story feels like it's slanted from his point of view. You learn a lot about his character. You learn a lot about his family. You learn a lot about his backstory, his upcoming. You don't really get much from Taraji as a character. She has kids in the movie. I can't even remember what the kids' names are. As a black man, of course, I'm invested in my side, of course. I know what side of history I want to be on. In the film, from a storytelling standpoint, this movie didn't really present that balance. It really didn't give Taraji much to do at all, despite the fact that she's giving a great performance. Between that and some of the pacing issues related to a lot of montages and a lot of skipping over things, mulling over, surface level type of exploration of some of the deeper things going on here, you have a movie that, while it's entertaining and it's well acted and it's well directed, is not a movie that's really that memorable, despite the great source material they have to work with. In the end, I enjoyed The Best of Enemies enough to put it in the golden age for Man of Steel. Just above average. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on The Best of Enemies. Tell me what your favorite Taraji P Henson movie of all time is. Put that in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace!